Now that it's been a few months since Clancy dropped, it's about time we rank every 21 Pilots album. This list is based on facts, not opinions, so if you disagree, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Just for some context, I am a diehard 21 Pilots fan, and while I don't think the band have ever made a bad album, I think they do have weaker albums. So we're gonna rank every album from worst to best, and if you wanna leave your own rankings, feel free in the comments down below and we can have a friendly discussion about it. But we're gonna start off with what I believe is their worst album, and that is... I mean, is anyone really surprised? This is one of the most controversial music releases I think I've lived through personally, because following up their most critically acclaimed album yet, they give us probably their worst received album yet. And I always find it funny how people are so ready to defend this album. The Scaled and Icy defenders are always on defense. Anytime Scaled and Icy is mentioned anywhere on social media, on any 21 Pilots related community, you're always gonna see people saying Scaled and Icy slander will not be tolerated. But I can understand the appeal of this album. A fun, a positive, a cheery 21 Pilots album in theory could be really fun. And there still are many great pop cuts on this album, like Shy Away, I think is a banger. It's so catchy. The Outside is groovy as hell. And Saturday, for as radio friendly as it is, I think is still a really fun jam. And I sort of like the dark turn the album takes in the final two songs with No Chances and Redecorate. And I can respect this album's place in the lore, but as a whole, this album feels really inconsequential and has two of probably their worst songs. Formidable for me is just a complete dud. It's completely forgettable. It's such a weak song for me. But worse than that is Bounce Man, which I think is their worst song to date. That chorus makes me want to puke. I hate it so much. And then you have a couple songs on here that I think are just okay, like Choker and Never Take It. I mean, this is such a mixed bag. And all in all, it's just lacking the depth and adventurousness of their previous and their following works. I think I still like this album more than I don't like it, but it's gonna be C tier for me. Next up, we got Self-Titled, and this is a weird one because it's so different from what they would eventually do as a band. By the way, this is a bootleg unofficial pressing that I found at some record store at some point, so ignore the weird cover. But this album actually came before Josh joined the band, and it has such a unique sound that I don't really think I can compare to any other album I've ever listened to. I mean, this is one of the most dramatic, oddball, like electronic, alternative rock thing. I don't even know what you would classify this as. And honestly, I think that's a huge part of the appeal of this album. And even right from the start, Tyler Joseph's writing was firing on all cylinders. I mean, Taxi Cab is one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs ever. And of course you have other bangers like Trapdoor and Isle of Flightless Birds and Oh Misbeliever I really love. But I have a few glaring issues with this album that hold it back for me. And one is the production, which I feel like might be kind of unfair because it was a first album and they weren't exactly working with professional producers. But the mixing on some of these songs is kind of rough, and the drums are clearly not very well produced or recorded and feel kind of limp. And the second is Tyler's singing. I don't know what he was doing here, but I feel like on half of these songs he's trying to be really quirky and it doesn't work. It's like those memes about like Lorde and other indie singers back in the day about like and he puts on this fucking like weird British accent on some of these songs. I really don't get it. Clearly Tyler has become a much better singer over the years and he's actually found his voice instead of trying to shoehorn in something really quirky or off the wall like I feel like he might be doing on this album. And there are some skips on this album. I think Johnny Boy has an absolutely mind-numbing chorus, I'm sorry. And Before You Start Your Day, the lyrics are questionable. It's also not exactly a fun listen. It's very moody, but that can kind of make it a slog to get through at some points because the track list is very long. There's a lot of songs on this album. And I think what 21 Pilots have shown on later projects is that they can make songs with tough messages still really entertaining and light and digestible, but still as relatable and hard-hitting as they are on this album. With those caveats, I'm gonna put this album also in C tier. Okay, this one is gonna ruffle some feathers being this low on the list. I feel like Vessel is such a product of its time, and we owe a lot to this record and sort of the weird fusions that it took in shaping 21 Pilots' current sound. Because this really is the blueprint for everything that came, and you can feel that too. But this is a far more consistent, far more lovable album than the previous two, I think. And the sentimental value this album holds, for me, cannot be overstated. There's a reason why so many songs on this album are still a staple of their live shows. Guns for Hands is a top 5 21 Pilots song for me. You got Holding On to You, Migraine, House of Gold, which people gave me shit for ranking it so high in my fucking ranking every 21 Pilots song video. Go check that out, by the way. You guys don't like House of Gold? Whatever. You have some less impressive tracks like the Run and Go and Semi-Automatic. And I will say I'm glad they dropped the electro pop choruses that they do in like Car Radio and Fake You Out. As much as I love those songs, like, I don't know, why you gotta have like an EDM drop? Like, that's just such a fake out for a chorus, and it's just not as cool as having an actual chorus like on Guns for Hands. I think that's what most felt like a product of its time for this album. And that's the reason why I don't think this album has aged very well. That also comes through in some of Tyler's vocal performances, which again, he's only gotten better with time. I think a lot of the reason why people say this is their favorite is in part due to nostalgia, which is totally valid. That's obviously going to play a factor in anyone's opinion of anything. But even with the hard hitters on this album, I don't think it's necessarily a 100% consistent project from front to back, even if I love all the songs on here to some degree.
That being said, this baby still gets an A tier.
Hot take, I think this is the most overhated 21 Pilots album, and it's because this is the album that blew them up. Their biggest hits to date are Stressed Out, Ride, and Heathens, and I'm gonna be real, I love all 3 of those songs. And as you can tell, because we're not done with the list, this is not my favorite 21 Pilots album, but I think this album, above all of their others, was the most culturally defining album that they've ever released. Not only because it got so popular, but because this album introduced so many 21 Pilots copycats and influenced the type of genre fusion that was started on Vessel that would eventually become more mainstream as a result of this album. Up to this point, this is their most confident that they've been infusing rock and pop and hip hop and reggae. They drop the electro pop choruses, they go for straight pop, and this is a really colorful release. I see a lot of critics saying that the songs on this album sound samey, or that it's just like safe top 40s type shit. I could not disagree more. I think the songs on this album are so distinct from one another and have actual interesting genre fusions and lyrical depth that was missing from a lot of pop music at this time. The choruses absolutely pop off. And much like Self-Titled, I can't say there's another album that sounds like Blurryface. Because Blurryface is so many things. Like its title suggests, it's sort of a mosaic of different flavors of pop. And that extends to the lyrical themes as well. I feel like each one of the songs on Blurryface dissects a different part of Tyler's mind, a different insecurity. And it acts as this beautiful, again, mosaic type album where you get those different struggles in sequential order until at the end you're finally facing things with the extreme closer Goner, and that's when you're starting to ask for help and you're exploding and all the emotions come bubbling up. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime record, even if it isn't the best record. And for that, I think it is an A-tier album. 21 Pilots are a band that are at their creative peak when they're playing live shows. Being the diehard fan I am, obviously I love all of their studio albums, but their live albums and their live shows are a completely different beast and always show a much more colorful side to their music. And that's why I think this is a better project than the previous ones I've listed. Because I really don't think you can get 21 Pilots until you've seen their live shows. But this one is special in particular because it shows just how fucking creative these guys are. The brand new life these songs take on this MTV Unplugged session, the way they break down everything, their use of looping and sampling and just making something new out of something so familiar is just magic to see. And maybe this album is more impressive when you're watching the actual YouTube video of them breaking down everything and making these songs. And you can totally write off this album in this position and this far up on the list. That's totally fine. But I think this is such an encapsulation of the creativity of this band that I think it had to be this high on the list. So this is an A-tier album.
I I wish I found some better sounds no one's ever heard. I wish I had a better...
The next album on my list is the 21 Pilots live stream experience that they did during the Scaled and Icy album rollout, which tragically never got a physical release, so I don't have anything to hold up. And the reason why it is so high on this list is because it's the ultimate victory lap for the band. It combines all of their eras of music with seamless transitions and just impeccable production quality across not only the recordings, but the video and the presentation itself. And honestly, a lot of what I said about the MTV Unplugged album rings true for this album, but it's even more of a tour de force. And for that reason, I give the live stream experience an S tier.
Welcome back to Trench.
This album isn't Trench 2. It's not Scaled and Icy, but better. But it's an evolution. It's something that stands on its own, and that's what makes it so good. Clancy really is the culmination of everything we've gotten so far from 21 Pilots. It's got the maturity of Trench, the pop sensibilities of Vessel, the insane creativity and genre hopping of Blurryface, and even lessons learned from Scaled and Icy turn up in both the lyrics and the production of this album. It might not be the most satisfying conclusion to the Dima storyline, but Clancy is every bit as exciting and unique as this band have been. The fierce opener Overcompensate, the slick performances of Backslide, Routines on the Night has one of the best hooks they've ever written, and Navigating is such a juggernaut of a song. This far into their career, they're still finding fresh ways to approach the topic of mental health. And for as diverse of a record this is, this still very much feels like it's about Clancy, the character. It's a character study. Much like Blurryface was about that character and those insecurities, this album is about breaking free and pushing on and moving on, and you really feel that through the succession of the tracks and the lyrics and where you finally end up on Paladin Straight. It's pretty much all killer, no filler. And I'm so damn happy they bounced back so strong after Scaled and Icy. This is an S tier album. This is probably the least shocking news to everyone, but Trench is the best 21 Pilots album, and it is my favorite album of all time. I have yet to listen to an album that I connect to and love more than Trench. What is my camera? Camera? No! One, it introduced a rich concept, a brand new world, and it did it perfectly. The execution was awesome. The music videos, the lyrics hidden in the album. This was probably the most exciting time to be a 21 Pilots fan because it was a time when we were all uncovering different secrets and just the layers that this album has. And there are so many layers to this album. Because not only can you enjoy this on a surface level listen, but you can enjoy it on a deeper level listen while you're digging into the meaning of all these songs. And you can dig even deeper with the lore, which, by the way, you can dig as far as you want to. You can just get the general gist of the lore, or you can dig way farther and get the more detailed, explanations of the world through the Clancy letters and the music videos and the theories and the nitty-gritty of the lyrics. This album is as deep as you want it to be, and that's what has made it so rewarding. And that's true of the production as well, because there is so much detail in each one of these songs. Paul Meany and Tyler snapped on the production. This is the most mature 21 Pilots album, and it feels gross to say that that's a reason why it's the best, because then it kind of sounds like, oh, you can't just make a fun song for the hell of it. But honestly, the maturity really pays off here. It feels like this is the most serious they have taken their music ever. And when an artist takes the music seriously, the listener takes the music seriously. I mean, every time I start this album up from Jumpsuit all the way to Leave the City, it feels like I'm re-entering the world, and it just pulls me in. And it's still a diverse album with so many different sounds, and yet they still manage to feel cohesive. I don't know how all of these songs work so well together, but they just do. The vibes this album gives out are so hypnotic and alluring. It's just such a cool album. Every song here feels like it was crafted by Michelangelo or something. You can really feel the effort that went into Trench when you listen to it. I just want to add really quick, this album's overall themes and messages about banding together and asking for help really resonated with me and really made me feel like I was a part of the community, and I think that's what made it so special and why I hold it so close to my heart. And even though Clancy comes close, this compared to all of the other albums, minus maybe the live albums, which are kind of a separate category, the difference is night and day. Trench is my favorite album of all time, and obviously gets an S tier. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what I do, please consider supporting me down below with my Ko-fi link. If you want to see more content like this, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.